The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
All right. Hey, all right. It's episode, you know what the fuck number is this episode? Let me see. Literally looking up what episode it is right now, because as you can hear in this intro, I have not prepared an intro like I usually do. Usually this opening segment is a little bit recorded. It's a little bit planned. It's me in show mode. But it's episode 154. Yeah, that's right. I had to pull up the website on my phone. Episode number 154. It is, oh my God. How many days is it till the man burns? It is several dozen days till the man burns as of this recording. Fuck it. I am doing this intro completely without any preparation because the last couple of months have just been absolutely nuts for me. And, yeah, I decided, just even pulling this thing together super last minute. I'm literally looking at Halcyon standing by the door. Are you trying not to make noise? Is that what's happening? No, I don't give a fuck. Cool. He's printing out things. There isn't much of an intro on this. We're gonna just jump into today's. It's gonna be pretty much. It's gonna be like zero editing. It's the typical episode that we do every year. Halcyon and I sit down together after every Burning Man and we talk about what this last burn was like for us and interesting things coming up in the community and blah blah blah. That's the intro. That's the intro. It's not terribly complicated. I can tell you that I am looking at a pretty spectacular view of the Pacific Ocean, and the last, especially just since even coming back from the playa, has just been insane for me, dealing with a lot of family stuff and work stuff. And so we were able to pull it together and make this episode happen finally. And it's an important part of the closure process for me to actually, have a Burning Man and then come and talk to tens of thousands of listeners around the world about it. Anyway, it's Halcyon. You know who he is. Pink Heart, Hug Nation, Burning Man personality staple. Fun fact. Did you know that Halcyon has fans outside of the Burning Man circles? I don't know if I've ever shared this story, but
what?
Yeah, I had I had a selfie with you. By the way, that's Halcyon right there.
Hi.
I had a selfie with you, and I posted it on. This was like a few years ago on Facebook, I think. And a friend of mine from high school, who's not even a fucking burner, never burned a Burning Man, not at all into any of the stuff that we're into.
Connoisseur of pornography, probably.
No. Massive fan of your videos, and says every time she's feeling down, she watches your videos on gifting and stuff, and it like perks her up. And she's like just a big Halcyon fan. Not at all a burner.
Oh, my heart just grew 2 sizes. That's awesome.
All right.
Well,
hold on. I'm just going to do the intro part real quick.
Okay.
This is I'm actually done. It's just like, hey, today's episode is the 2024 Burning Man recap with Halcyon as my guest. Obviously, you just heard his voice. So in today's show, the first like half hour of it, we're talking a lot more like culture stuff, talking a lot more about Burning Man community online and how we communicate with each other. So about a half an hour of cultural talk before we actually get into talking about this year's Burning Man 2024. But then, we dive pretty deep into it. Halcyon has some great shout outs to art projects. Without further ado, let's get into it. Today's episode is entitled Blame Halcyon, the 2024 Burning Man recap episode. I go by Mister Arash, even though nobody calls me Mister. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was the fly with the balls and the sky.
Okay, now there you go. Now we can start talking.
Well, I was just, that line between what a burner resonates with and what a regular person resonates with just feels blurrier and blurrier. I think I used to have this idea that the people who understand me are burners. And the way that Burning Man has influenced culture and the way that so many aspects of festival culture and alternative ideas through social media and just the internet, getting pervasive in the world is that there's people all over the place that so resonate with 10 Principles ideas, even though they've never heard of Burning Man. And I find that exciting because, quite frankly, I'm getting a little tired of going to the desert every year.
Blasphemy. What is happening? Yeah, well, you know what? Actually, that's just like, you just brought up like 4 different topics that I want to talk about in one breath. So let's see if we can hit those one by one. That the first thing about our culture feeling like there's less of a divide between the culture that we're experiencing and what's happening a little bit out in the world. I do think about that constantly. And one of the things that I do note is I do wonder sometimes if we're just like living in a little bit of a bubble.
Sure.
Because it's so one of those things that I do consider is that how much like we live in a little bit of a bubble in Southern California.
Yeah.
I mean, like just even at this exact minute, we are in Solana Beach, which has like a pretty heavy like burner adjacent culture. Like even without the burners being here, like there's a lot of like that similar kind of energy. There's like healing circles. There is people that are into our kind of music and our kind of fashion and culture. So for sure, like here, it's hard to tell who's a burner and who's just like a normal Solana Beach resident.
Well, I think those bubbles exist everywhere. Like 100%. I think if you're going to go to a coffee shop anywhere around this country, there's going to be a flyer up for a sound bath, and things like that. And I think that well, absolutely, we're in a bubble. It's just that bubble is not exclusive to burners. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of communities that are breeding and growing in these bubbles, I think. Because there's all sorts of speakers and leaders and literature and that is encouraging people to be authentic and to be self-expressive, and that's very burnery, even if it has nothing to do with traditionally Burning Man. Yeah,
100%. I think that's, of course, that's like a major part of it. I think additionally, we are, this is something I've said many, many times on this episode, and it's on this show, not this episode. This episode's only been going for 6 minutes.
And already you're repeating yourself.
I'm repeating myself over and over. The reason that Burning Man fascinates me to the point that I took on this kind of project where we just do this thing where we sit around and talk about it is that I believe very strongly that what's happening in the burner community is a predictor of what is going to happen in culture as a whole. And I see that with music, with art, with philosophy, with ways of thinking. Generally, if you see something, I believe, at Burning Man or at a regional burn or something that's happening within our community, I can predict that in like the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to become part of the mainstream culture.
I love that.
And that's what's super interesting to me about this process. Like every year that I'm on Playa, I'm looking around, I'm like, oh yeah, like this in a couple of years, I'm going to see stuff like this happening in like normal streets.
I love that. I don't often have that same faith, although I have been surprised many times of like, oh my gosh, I can remember years ago when I went to a Jane's Addiction concert and I saw all the performers on stage. I'm like, absolutely, those are burners. Yeah. They're all doing fire performance and aerials and all this stuff, which, is you don't just see at Burning Man anymore. But I think there's also something about, and again, I too am dedicated to this community for for specific reasons and for my absolute belief that it's not happening better anywhere else, is that the people that are getting these tickles of something in them wants to be expressed, and they're finding these little bubbles, there's still nothing like Burning Man to have that absolute support and just 100% safety of being weird.
Yeah.
And so that is to me, no matter any negative things I hear about Burning Man or any complaints, I'm like, yeah, but it's the greatest cheerleading section for weirdos in the world.
That's so spot on. Specifically the word being safety. You're right. Even though I live this life all year and I'm around burners all year, I will find myself on Playa, like the first couple of days, having to remember, oh wait, I can fully let my freak flag fly over here. I don't have to censor anything.
Yeah. And it's not, because it's not just accepted, it's celebrated. You know, you really, you get this cumulative like momentum almost of wackiness or silliness or bravery, you know, and there's so much like caution and so much. I mean, I think that always in our life there's parts of us that are kind of protecting us and making sure we don't say the wrong thing. And when you are around a place where you cannot say the wrong thing, there's a constriction deep inside that it relaxes. And then things come out. Sometimes those things are ridiculous. And sometimes they are a new way that we think, a new way that we are creative. It's a voice, a solution. And so I think that shift from protection to safety is profound.
So that's an interesting way to express it. And that's like, let's dive a little bit deeper into that, because that is absolutely one of the things that's become a joke in the community currently, is that there are a lot of people who do feel like they can say the wrong thing and they're getting in trouble for saying the wrong thing. Yeah. Because they're saying XYZ. I would venture, like for example, it's become like a joke, you know, like, oh, Burning Man was great, but it's so woke now. Yeah. You know, it's like, right. Which to me, it generally feels like people who are using that word as an irritation are kind of, I don't know, they're irritated that they feel like they have to pay attention to something that they didn't want to pay attention to. And I would venture, I would argue from my experience, you know, with like saying the wrong thing, it's not the words that we're tripping over, it's the intentions behind the words. That's the thing that is upsetting to people who, so to a person who is like frustrated that they can't just say whatever the fuck they want, what they're really frustrated about is that they can't just, you know, do whatever the fuck they want to do without worrying about other people.
Do you see that in person in Black Rock City and at regionals, or are you speaking more of like the online Burning Man community?
It's 100% more online.
Yeah.
I have seen it a bit in person. But yeah, that's another topic that I'd written here. The online community is not representative of a Burning Man as a whole.
Because in the physical space, you know, if I see someone at their camp doing a performance that is offensive to me, I can either choose to yell at them, which is my radical self-expression, or I can choose to go somewhere else. Yeah. But I don't feel like it's so dangerous. We'd have to tiptoe around things in person there. I feel like there's just so much space to do whatever you want. Now, online, I think that we are so trained right now to just attack. Yeah. You know, and it's so. I'll admit that I get my Facebook memory updates, and I'm like, I used to be more outspoken. I used to say things that were not universally accepted more. Yeah. And I felt like I wouldn't get attacked in the way that I am now. And it's not this it's not like you're a dummy. It's like, you effing TERF fascist. You know, it's like, whoa. all I did was say I listened to a podcast and it was fascinating. I didn't go march and whoa.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my God. Where do we even start on that? I've personally not had that experience of somebody becoming upset at something that I've said. Not in like recent memory, not like something doesn't pop out to me, right? I have absolutely had conversations with folks on Playa who are describing that they had that experience. I was not there for the exchange. I wasn't there to witness it. But that's what I'm thinking, is that I think the frustration is when people feel like, one, they're not able to express themselves, and then somebody else feels like they feel like they're not being seen. And then we get into bickering over words. You use this word, you use this word. But really the underlying, the underlying sickness of it is a lack of respect for each other's like autonomy or entity. But yeah, you're right. At like Burning Man, for example, that is part of like what we've developed into the culture, is that you can shout, fuck this, fuck this stupid performance. It's bullshit.
And I'm really cautious, and I think it's a dangerous thing to start saying what is acceptable and is not acceptable. Like, I'm against in the arguments. Well, I'm not against discussions about anything, but I'm against when people get like angry about too much generators. Not, we're not green enough, and I'm like, look, the top most important principle is freedom of expression. And then when that goes back to that constriction thing. Yeah. If you feel like there's some things that aren't okay, you are not having full and total access to this collective unconscious, this divine inspiration, this like really deep thing. And the power of Burning Man is that when we let people open that pipeline, sometimes incredible things come out. And if you are afraid that what if the thing that comes out of me is going to have a negative reaction, I'm going to get attacked for it, you never quite release the constriction.
Yeah. That's so I have a reminder in like all my notes, just reminding myself, trust your intentions. Because sometimes if I'm like doing a video or I'm about to do a podcast like this, right? If I get in my head and I'm anxious about using the wrong or right words, what I can go back to is trust your intentions. Is your intention to present yourself a certain way, or is your intention legitimately to understand? Is your intention to be admired, or is your intention legitimate curiosity, right? I think when we go back to setting the right intentions about why we're doing a thing, or why we're interested in a thing, or why we're fighting for a thing, the outward expression can be more trusted. We are less likely to trip up and upset somebody about using the wrong words or XYZ, because the intention is going to lead the way.
Yeah, I think that there are people that are looking for a fight at all times.
100%.
And that if you even use a word that is a part of their fight, they respond in almost a cut and paste regurgitation of what they're upset about. That happens a lot when I'll write something and I'll get a response that is, it contains the issue I'm talking about, but it has nothing to do with what I'm saying. But they saw me use the word assault, and so it's like, well, and so I think.
It's almost like you've written a sentence, but you've written a paragraph, but they're responding to one specific sentence and not like the other 5 words.
It's like they're like Pee Wee Herman, and you say the magic word, and then they go, ah! Like,
yeah.
That's great. We'll date our audience. Who got that? But I like what you're saying about intention, and that works for your own. Yeah. Piece, if you know where you're coming from. Actually, I was just in a long conversation about this online about the process of, if you have the right intention and then someone corrects you, it's hard. It's hard not to be defensive, but ideally, if you're someone who's doing correcting, I know I don't want to tone shame you. I don't want to but if you can see one another as partners in growth. And say, hey, like I did a video years ago where I was talking about that when I was younger, I used to be homophobic, and my friends and I would say, that's so gay, and what I really meant was, that's so lame. Yeah. And so I got contacted by someone who said, hey, I'm active in the disability community, and actually to some people using the word lame is
Yeah.
considered offensive. And my first reaction was, are you fucking serious? Like, what am I going to say? And the more I sat with it, I'm like, okay, like they weren't angry at me. They were helping me. And it wasn't my intention. But my overall intention is I want to minimize the harm that I do to everybody.
Sure.
So now I can, my Angelou, I know better, I can do better. And I think that this is way deeper than just Burning Man and stuff, but like in all of our relationships, whenever you get corrected or you're having the courage to say to somebody, hey, this thing that you're doing, I think it'd be easier for me if you said it in a different way, or if you ask my permission, or if you, like, instead of going straight to defensiveness, if you can go, thank you for trusting me. Thank you for having the courage to say that. Thank you for knowing that our relationship can be deeper, can be stronger, and that you're willing to have some awkwardness to get there. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I read this a few years ago and it stuck with me. It's not, instead of me versus you, how about me and you versus the problem?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And like that, and again, that's like something, if I'm going to correct somebody else, I'll come into that with that intention. So all that said, a lot of what this is like hitting on is for sure the topic of like social media. This podcast has been going for 10 years. I remember like early on when we started the show, I posted, I don't know, like episode number 6 or something in the Burning Man group, and immediately had like 3 people attack and say, this is not a place for you to share your podcast.
Right.
And I remember as soon as I saw that, I'm like, you know what? Fuck this group. This was like 9 years ago, right? So even like to this day, like I don't really post in there. Every once in a while, it like shows up in my, like when it comes up in my feed, I'll like something like, oh, this is funny. This particular year, I happened to spend a lot more time on Facebook before and after Burning Man, so I have like a very like a whole different perspective of it. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. It's really toxic.
Yeah,
it's really toxic.
I spent some energy after the burn trying to steer energies in a better way, and I spent time before the burn. I actually created a new Instagram account for Burner Prep, trying to like, one of my passions for the last 20 years has been acculturation and teaching people the principles and like etiquette at the temple and things like that. So I really put a lot of energy in trying to push this out of control social media, kind of icky, burnery thing that happens online, trying to steer it in the right direction. But man, it is shocking.
Yeah, we're gonna vent about Facebook for a while right now. That's what this chapter of the interview is.
Good. So
Fuck that group.
I saw this post where someone was talking about the "I'm fine" incredible Ukrainian piece.
Spectacular.
Oh my God.
That's got to be. I mean, that was, I think we can safely say it was like universally like beloved piece. Like for anybody who didn't attend a burn or somehow missed it, it's this massive. You see it from across Playa. It says "I'm fine," and with a little smiley face at the end, like the way you might type in a text. "I'm fine." And as you get closer, you'll see that it's made of reclaimed street signs from Kiev. It's actually like it's right. From the Ukraine. I'm pretty sure it's from Kiev, and they're like riddled in bullet holes.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's got a satellite link up, so that every time the alarms are going off in the city that there's a bombing happening, they were going off live on Playa.
Right, that air horn sound.
Yeah.
Okay, right. It was
which like I've heard it in my childhood, like in Iran, like when I was in Iran during the war. So like I was hearing that, I'm like, holy shit, I haven't heard this since I was like 5.
So this is a what not to do on social media.
Yeah.
So someone posted, they said, that was such a beautiful piece. It was so powerful. But if you know what art car was there at this time that just laying on their horn, so disrespectful, just over and over, they just kept laying on their horn. And it was this long thing about how, I'm like, and people are like, that was the piece.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh no.
And it was so angry, and it's like, how often do we go straight to offense and blame when we really don't understand.
Wow.
It's like, ugh.
Wow, that's a trip. That piece was fucking spectacular. Yeah.
Okay, another social or thing that it felt like this year, there's always the you people suck, don't leave your bikes there.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but there's really a lot of stolen bike stuff and stolen coats and frustration with used to be a good community. Now it's filled with criminals, and now it's
this used to be a nice neighborhood,
right?
Before all this riffraff moved in here.
And I get it. That's a terrible thing to lose a bicycle. But I mean, I also I remember when the advice was, don't bring anything to Burning Man that you wouldn't mind if got destroyed. It's like, okay. So people start bringing $1,500, $2,000 bicycles, and now we have a reputation that it's where billionaires go to play. You don't think that there's going to be more and more people that come to take the expensive stuff?
I do want to chime in on one thing here, because this is a topic you and I specifically have talked about in the past, and I do want to clarify that I don't want to like victim shame anybody. Like it's not your fault that you were robbed or stolen from.
I would like to,
but it is
shame.
A thing that's happening.
No. You're right.
We're discussing a thing that's happening.
I'm trying to put a line between the, oh my gosh, this sucks, I'm so angry, drawing the dot to this community sucks.
Right.
Burners suck.
Yes. It's
like, that's not how it works. Like we have created a condition that has invited more criminals. You were robbed by a criminal. That fucking sucks.
Yes.
And sometimes we might have to be doing more locking of things. We might have to put a lock that goes through the coat of your jacket if you've got a $1,500 LED jacket.
Right.
Yes, these are things that you have to do because we've created this incredible place that brings in people with criminals. And part of freedom is it's got rough edges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Freedom's not free.
Yeah.
Is that whole thing?
I mean, yeah. There's a thing.
Just to clarify, we're on the Facebook topic. Yeah, it's not fuck this community. It's yeah, you're right. It's gotten bigger. Like we have, you know what? Black Rock City has more tourists than it ever has.
Yeah.
It used to not be a tourist town. It was just like the locals living there.
I have a friend who knew a friend who said that I would like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, yes, that's a part of the thing that happens. It fucking sucks that, there was a year that, and this is really frustrating. There was a year that we had a neighbor camp. Somebody at the neighbor camp stole my buddy's bike.
Whoa.
And I went and poked around, and I was able to discover that some people in that camp told me that there was somebody in their camp who was bragging that they just come up on a really nice bike. And I went and I found the bike in their camp, brought it back, and I went back and I confronted their camp lead. Yeah. Confronted their camp lead. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, this is your... And it was heartbreaking. We've moved away from Facebook, sorry. It was heartbreaking, but because like he, this poor guy, it was like, he wasn't like I think you have like different kinds of camp leads, right? Like you have like the big, charismatic leadership type camp lead, like you, right? And then you've got like the camp lead types that are like very into logistics and spreadsheets, right?
Yep.
And so this guy was like much more of like a spreadsheet camp lead. So like they referred me to him, and then now I'm like pissed off and I'm in this guy's face, right? And I'm not being belligerent or anything, but I'm upset. Sure. And he's like doesn't have any idea how to respond to this situation. I'm like, oh man, this is fucked up.
I mean, this is we don't as a community have a really good response to the situation because we have this assumption that we're surrounded by family.
Right.
And so
which I would like for us to continue, by the way.
Yes. But part of being we are a family that does have bad actors within us. It used to be all we had to be worried about was undercover cops.
Yeah.
But now, yes, there are undercover cops and there are undercover criminals. Yeah. So as a family, we need to protect each other more. So I think that
And I would actually argue real families have that too.
Good point.
Yeah. Absolutely. Families have like cousin Joe who's like a little shifty.
Right.
And when he's around at the event, we got to be a little careful with.
Right. And I think that if that is your family, you sometimes have to have talks about it and like what's the correct behavior. And I think as a community we're getting better at saying, hey, if you see a drunk woman who's being kind of getting too much attention from a guy,
Right.
then take care of each other.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to lean into that with bicycles too, and everything of just like, hey, is that your bike?
Yeah.
And here's it's a narrow line, because it's how do we protect each other without becoming crazed vigilantes?
Yeah.
Because we have a tendency as a community to do that too. It'd be like, you motherfucker wearing feathers, fucking moop asshole. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
If you just, all you need to say is, hey, did you know that outfit might be moopy? And you go, actually, no, I had it. It's all set. Thanks for your concern. But instead, we have these like,
Well, two things. One, going back to kind of what you were saying earlier, though, is that at Burning Man, we have kind of created that culture where we can talk shit to each other. Fuck your stupid fucking outfit. I don't know. Is that okay?
no.
I'm sorry. Second thing I want to call out. Your pronunciation of vigilante, by the way, is my new favorite thing.
Okay. I want to return to is it okay to yell at people? Because no. Unless someone is intentionally trying to create a conflict, and their art is creating conflict, there is one of the things that the vigilantes have been doing is they are responding to the influx of influencers and people that go around and just take pictures at art, which that's a lot. And I'm not going to say influencers. All of us in this culture, there's this tendency like, oh, I'm going to take a picture in front of this art. I'm going to take a picture in front of this art. People are waiting in line to take their picture in front of the art. But sometimes people see, often, almost always, women in their awesome outfits, and they want to attack them for being influencers that are ruining Burning Man and being sparkle ponies.
Is this an online thing, or are we talking real life?
In real life.
Okay.
And so
you've seen this happen in real life?
Yes, many. And so I wrote about this, and I had dozens of women say, "Oh yeah, that happened to me."
Wow.
Jamin Percy, one of the incredible photographers of Burning Man, he goes, "Oh, I stopped doing photo shoots because so many people would ride by and yell stuff at me." That's why he does drone stuff now, is because it's like people are so, they think they're helping, and my thought is, look, be really careful not to poison something beautiful in your attempt to protect it.
Right.
And so if you see something, if you think someone is being influential, and you might, maybe they're holding up a product, while they're hey, are you familiar with the 10 principles? Are you familiar with decommodification? And try to do it again. Like, it's not you versus me. It's how us against the problem. And I think if we can have that attitude instead of vigilantism, it would be so much better for the community.
I go back to my conversation with Athena, the longtime LA regional burn, who
and BRCVR person.
BRCVR, yes, currently. But in that conversation, I remember specifically, she was like, I want to make a pretty thing so that pretty little butterflies land on it. Mm-hmm. And, that's, different people contribute to our culture and Black Rock City in different ways. I, for one, I'm a fan of pretty people in pretty outfits doing pretty things. Like, that's fine. Like, that's the way that you're doing it. I don't have pretty outfits. It's not a thing that I'm able to get away with. But I think that's fucking great. Like,
absolutely. And I know some badass builders, artists who once in a while put together an awesome outfit, and guess what? They're hot women.
Mostly, yes, totally. No, I friend Shane in Vegas was telling me that, like, one year they brought out a bunch of friends who were like bottle service girls from Vegas, and they were the hardest working people in camp. They were working their ass off. And they also got shit left and right for being sparkle ponies. And I think the topic that we're getting into here that maybe people are uncomfortable with is that it is misogyny.
Fuck yeah.
Because everything that you're describing, I'm trying to imagine a scenario where a guy is taking photos, like a really attractive man is taking photos in front of an art
Well,
piece.
follow me around Burning Man, because that's my whole life.
Yeah.
But seriously, I've been taking pictures with my shirt off in front of art pieces for 26 years.
Yeah.
And you know how people yell at me? None.
Yeah.
If there's someone to blame for this trend, blame me, but don't kid yourself and say this is not misogyny.
Oh my God,
You're
I should have called this episode Blame Halcyon.
Please.
Blame Halcyon. Oh, we're going to make t-shirts of that. Yeah, no, it is completely, and this is overlapping with the online thing, because whatever it is about the infrastructure of Facebook brings out not only the worst of us, the algorithm brings attention to the worst things because the algorithm, and it's not like a malicious thing. Honestly, I'm of the subscribing belief that it's not even a malicious thing. It just knows this is what gets likes and views. So it keeps showing that shit. And I'm seeing that, and that amplification of misogyny, you can see it for sure in like the Facebook groups. Cause I see that every time a woman posts a photo of them at Burning Man, it's almost guaranteed that there is going to be a bunch of fucking shitting happening on that image. And there's one actually that I made a note about. There was a burner who posted a photo of herself in front of like a dragon art piece. And I don't remember specifically, I might have it actually saved here. The way that she had posted about it was very obviously, she was like joking. Like she was making a pretty funny joke. Like it was an in-joke. But it seemed like immediately a bunch of comments just got fixated on the fact that they were looking at an attractive woman in front of an art piece. Yeah. And immediately labeled her as like an influencer and a terrible person, like shitting on her. And I'm like, geez, it's gotten really fucking bad in here.
Yeah. I mean, the number of, since I've been talking about it online, the number of women who have said that it has affected their behavior at Burning Man is disgusting.
Yeah.
It's a problem. I mean, I think that's a place we can do better. And I think that if we see people doing that, don't see them as enforcers of our culture. They're huge problems.
Yeah.
Like, we need to speak to those people just like we would if someone's getting on another bike that's not theirs.
I remember a few years ago, there was that the fashion designer. I'm not going to get the details of the story right, but perhaps you can correct me on this. They'd used like images from the temple and stuff, right?
Yeah.
My thing was, I remember when I looked into that, my understanding was that this person was a longtime burner. First of all, if we're talking about the same person,
He did a runway show with.
Yeah.
I don't remember their history, but.
And I don't. So my thing was that I looked at that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this person is a veteran. 2, these outfits were not for sale. The runway show that I'm aware of was one where it was in fashion. You'll have like things like, for example, like producing things that you're looking at on Playa. Like they're not for sale. You're not actually like mass producing it. It's an art project that's like showing off like, here's some different like concepts that I put together with this lighting, yada, yada. I remember, and if we are thinking about the same thing, I looked at that one and I looked into the past of it. I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of that immediate trigger where people just see fashion. It just turns into, oh, these were the people that bullied me in high school. But every fashion designer I personally know is very much a fucking artist. Like they're very much in our world. They're deeply embedded in the process of like dissecting and understanding reality and looking at different ways that they can activate these things. It's not, there's this image that we have of just, if they're fashion designers, if they're models, they must be, the people that beat me up in high school or made fun of me, right?
That's really interesting. I mean, I was aggressively on the other side of that argument at the time. The pieces were, the fabrics used, some of them used images from the temple with actual writing. Like the things that people wrote on the temple as a private thing to be burned were then on a runway.
Let me stress, I agree with you. Shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
No, but I think that the level of attack that it got, I felt was like a little overwhelming. Like I think this could have been one where it felt to me, again, I don't remember if we're talking about the same person. It seemed to me from what little research I did that person was somebody who would have like, you would have been able to like more directly communicate with. Not you specifically. Just,
I remember I reached out to that person. I wanted to talk to them and it was so heated at the time.
Interesting.
And anyway, let's move on from that. A really interesting thing. I kind of want to revisit it. And do a little more research and remember. But yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. I did have by the way, the screen cap. The one that I was talking about with the dragon. The person who posted it was making a joke about somebody ruining their best video, and it was like just like somebody. Oh my God, what do you call it when somebody fucks up your photo? Photobomb. It was just somebody photobombing them, but she was very obviously joking. But it was immediately turned into, oh my God, this is an awesome. So that's an interesting question. How do we move that in a better direction if it's online?
I mean, on the other side, I've seen threads where someone posts a picture that it's almost like it baiting like that, like there's an attractive person, and the number of people coming in defense saying like it that are agreeing with us and kind of standing up for we shouldn't have to deal with this kind of misogyny was overwhelmingly like 90% people that were doing their best to make it right. I think that one of the problems is that online there's just not enough weight to anything.
Yeah.
And so there's like if on Playa you looked someone in the eyes and said it's wrong what you're doing, they would probably not do it again.
Right.
But online, it's almost people think it's like a hobby to like stir people up. And,
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'll tell you this. We'll close out the online conversation right now and actually talk about Burning Man. But we've talked about online quite a bit, but it's been a major part of this year's, I think, experience. I can tell you this. I'm personally enacting a plan to kind of like leave Facebook by next year, and I'm not gonna just like cancel it overnight. Like I'm gonna go through a process of like little by little removing things, deleting things, and saying goodbye to this chapter of my life or whatever. But I've definitely hit a point where I'm looking at Facebook and I'm like, I don't think it's adding to anything.
It is. I mean, you talked about the algorithms. Like I just read something that said that the angry response is actually weighed 5 times as heavy as a like.
Yeah.
And it really, there's so many things that I've loved about Facebook for so long, and I agree that its harm in my mental health is increasing. At the same time, I get these Facebook memories from 10 years ago that says, I need to spend less time on Facebook. I'm like, jeez.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. I had a question here. Have you ever just gone to Burning Man? I did that this year.
Ooh,
like I just
me too.
Yeah, we just went to Burning Man.
Yeah,
and it wasn't like connected to like this project and that thing and like it was just like, hey, let's just go to Burning Man and see what that's like.
I liked it. Yeah. So this was my first year.
Is it addictive?
My first year in '98. I joined an existing camp, and I came in after they had built, and I joined an existing camp. It was Frey Camp. And since that year, I'd always either co-founded a camp or led a camp. And this year, for the first time in 26 years, I joined Burners Without Borders and came in as a camper midweek after they'd built. And it was so awesome. Like I'd see camp leads running through camp, and I go, you know what? I don't even have to think about what they're fixing because they're awesome and they're fixing it.
Yeah. You've paid your dues. But I actually I have a sticker here, Buck's Ducks. That's one of your campmates.
Is
Did
it?
you meet Buck? Yeah.
Oh.
I came by Monday night after Temple and gave out a bunch of grilled cheese and
beautiful
quesadillas, and I met Buck and I was like, hey, is Halcyon around? They're like, yeah, he's over there somewhere.
This is I left.
You might have left already.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I left right after the man burned as well.
Oh wow!
I've
full on weekend warrior status.
It was. Yeah, I mean, I will say that the depth of my joy was less. Like experiencing Black Rock City, knowing that this place is better because of my efforts and my labor, and spending time, witnessing people's minds being blown because of the energy and the love that I put into things. That makes that has made the week so much better. So this time, I did not have that same experience because I was more of a a spectator. I won't say I'm a spectator, but more of, and So I like, if people like, I certainly don't want to be recommending doing less, but I certainly was able to enjoy it.
I'll tell you this. I do recommend it to some people. Yeah. Because I have, for example, I've had this conversation with multiple friends this past year where we were talking about whether or not they're going to go. And this adds, by the way, to the conversation of why the attendance was lower. And they were like, yeah, then you got to do this and you got to do the art project. And I'm like, you don't have to do any of that. How about you just go to Burning Man? How about you just go and experience what it is? It's the same way that, I'm using Noom app. It's a weight loss psychology based app. And one of the things that it does is like when I've like hit a plateau with my weight restrictions, it says, take a week off.
Oh, wow.
Just stop measuring things. Just go, like, just eat. Don't worry about it. And I think like if you're feeling any sort of burnout, and there are a lot of folks experiencing burnout, and that burnout is the reason. I think it is a major contributing reason to like how we have a little bit of a lower attendance, because there's so many of my friends, at least, that didn't go because I could see there was a light burnout experience happening. They're like, I usually go, I do this thing, I build the camp, and I just I don't have the energy to do that this year.
Yeah. And
I've been trying to encourage people, like, take a year off from all that. Take 2 years off. Like, go recharge. Trust that the rest of the community is doing things, and you're not like the center of this whole thing.
Right.
And you'll feel the recharge, and that's what happened with me.
Oh.
I took this, like this year wouldn't have even happened if it wasn't for my friends rallying to like get my shit there and get me there. I was fully prepared not to go.
Me too.
Yeah. I had like personal, like my dad's health stuff was happening, and just a lot going on. I just physically did not have the bandwidth. I just like the day before I left for Playa, I'd spent 9 hours in the emergency room, and it was just a lot. So I'm like, I'm not even making it, but my friends rallied, got my bins, got me a tent. Like I literally just went because they rallied and made it happen for me. And then I had this amazing week of, for the first time, not having to worry about being somewhere at Thursday at 8 p.m.,
right.
Or some shit like that. And the week ended with me feeling rejuvenated and recharged and like eager to get into something next year.
I love that. Because I mean, really, the city works because of gifting.
Yeah.
And gifting works when you feel joy because you've given others joy. Mm-hmm. And when you are in a state of obligation, when you're in a state of I have to, when it's a job, then the same act that used to bring you joy as a gift, it doesn't bring you the same joy.
And so, it doesn't, by the way, bring me joy to receive that gift.
Good point.
Because I have absolutely been in scenarios with art projects or whatever where people have gotten into that mode that you're describing.
Yeah.
And it sucks working with them.
Yeah.
Sucks.
I'm like, hey, this is a tough thing as a camp lead too. And people say, I'm doing that. I'm like, could do less. Mm-hmm. Like let's do as much as we can while we still are happy to do so.
Yeah.
And then no more than that.
Yeah.
Because it's not about do as much as you can and kill yourself. It's let's do as much as it's fun. I mean, the whole thing falls apart when we are burnt out and pushing ourselves beyond that. Now, that being said, there's something awesome when you go a little bit into the red and then go, oh, I'm so proud of what I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you are trudging and you feeling like these damn newbie sparkle ponies and they're doing, and I'm doing all this, and then do less.
Yeah. No, you should absolutely do less. I even had a friend recently kind of like, this person had been out of the community for a couple of years because they were dealing with a lot of personal stuff. And when they kind of returned, we were having this conversation at a party, and I'm kind of like holding this, like we're crying, and and it's just like this beautiful moment. And I was saying to them, listen, how fucking amazing is this that you don't have to personally hold this whole thing up for it to continue existing, that you can go take some time off and deal with whatever it is you're dealing with. And we're here waiting for you. And you can come back. We're not over there bugging you to come back. You can take all the time you need. But the minute you're ready to come back, there's this whole infrastructure, this community. There's all these other people doing their work, keeping this thing going. And it's not all on your shoulders. And that's fucking amazing.
So that speaks to one of the most incredible parts of my burn this year. So I did not camp with Pink Heart, a camp that I helped create, and was, I'm intimately, my DNA is infused in so much of that camp, and I didn't know how I was going to feel, returning. And
why did you make that decision?
There's a lot to it.
Okay.
Some of it has to do with my recent version of sobriety and my adjustment of my traditional burn experience and trying to do less and not be in the same situations that I had the old patterns with. And so that was a big one. And so I wanted to come late and I wanted to leave early. And Pink Heart has a rule that everyone participates in strike. And I made that rule. And when I made a request to come just for a few days and that was reflected back to me, I was like, I'm so fucking proud of you guys. I'm so fucking proud of this camp because like I made that rule for a reason. And so it actually gave me the confidence to relax and go, you know what? They don't need me. They know what it takes to make a beautiful camp. They know what it takes to make a community. And so when I rolled up for the first time and they got Esplanade placement as it was designed to be, and it was so beautiful, it was so incredible. And I'm like, am I going to be sad? Am I going to feel? And I felt so fucking proud. And it was that feeling of like,
sending your little one off to school.
Yes, exactly. Like, I so many of the projects I've done over my life have been me. And sometimes it feels like I've got a kite on a day with no wind, and it stays up as long as I keep running, as long as it just stays in the air. But the minute I take a break, it dies. Yeah. And to see it thriving and pumping out love to the community with zero input from me was such a thrill. It was beautiful. And then I ended up spending more time there than anywhere else because the reason why I helped make that camp is because that's what I like at Burning Man, a place to hang out and talk. And so I spent a lot of nights, catching up with the people there. I did another interesting experience when I was there. I went for the ice cream social. They serve vegan ice cream. It's one of the things that Pink Heart does. And people walked up to me and go, "Thank you so much for the ice cream." Yeah. And I was like, I felt a little awkward, and I'm like, oh, these are people who are doing it. I'm not camped here this year. And then I talked to a campmate and I said, is there a better way you want me to say that? I don't want to be insensitive. And he looked me in the eyes. He goes, hey, if somebody says thank you, the answer is you're welcome. Yeah. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, and I feel tingles in my body right now. Like that feeling of like it's still my art, the love that I put into it isn't over. It's still pumping through and it's still out there and I can still be proud. I can still say you're welcome.
100%.
And I felt like I needed permission because I didn't want to feel like I was stealing their glory, but it was a significant experience for me to see the pink ripples touching people. It was fantastic.
The pink ripples. That's adorable. Yeah, I made a note here. Strike. That's right. That was going to be one of the things I wanted to ask about / vent about. When do you guys strike? And I had this conversation with multiple people about how there was some frustration's a strong word. What's the word? Annoyance, sads. It was like a feeling of the sads because it felt like people are striking sooner and sooner. Everybody seems to like be sprinting to strike because most camps don't have the rule that you're describing. I imagine it's a part of what's happening. People are like, we got to get the fuck out of here. I can't stay past Temple Burn. So a lot of people are striking sooner, and the city, it looks emptier. Like waste. I feel like Burn Night should be like really the night that you're celebrating Black Rock City, and it felt like this Burn Night. I'm like riding around, going like half the city's gone.
Yeah. Well, to be fair,
it feels sad.
The city is raging from the moment it opens, and that didn't used to be the case. It used to be like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, people are still building. Right. Now it's like, day one, it is full bore party. So
pre-open.
Exactly. I know. So Pink Heart, traditionally we are guilty of this. We have striked on Sunday morning.
Shame.
Yeah. And this year then the year that was super hot, we realized that there's no way we can do it during the daytime. So we started Friday night breaking down. So
this is a negative pink ripple.
Well, here's the thing, though. So they leave up the beacon, so you can still use the camp as a way to navigate. But part of it is because if we're going to ask everybody to strike, not everybody can stay till Monday, and Tuesday. So Burners Without Borders, their strike was far later. I was not there for that. I don't know. I would rather have a city that ends early, that more people are participating in the breaking down, than having to have these crews of heroes that do this Herculean tasks after a week that have to, because even when we strike a little bit early, there's always a number of people that have to put in way too much work, and it's totally unfair. And the burnout level and the frustration that happens is certainly it's almost every year that happens. And so I would rather figure out some way to spread out that need.
Yeah. No, I'm aware of it. I'm a self-employed photographer, so I can take the extra time off. I don't have kids. I can stay till Tuesday, right? I'm aware that most people do not have that privilege.
Right.
The same reason that during the rains, a lot of folks panicked,
right?
Because they had to get back to work, get back to kids. Yeah. There's the default world is waiting, unfortunately.
And even if it's not, I used to have so much fun at the Grand Sierra in Reno. I wanted to get there and start partying there. So.
Take a fucking shower.
I skipped it this year.
Yeah. So a few things. This was a note that I had. God damn it, it warms my heart to see burners around the world celebrating Burn Night, regardless of where they are. That is it. I think it definitely really kicked into high gear during COVID, and now it's become such a normal thing. I'm talking to friends globally, and they are celebrating Burn Night.
Are you talking about people that aren't at Black Rock City? Yeah, totally.
Making little effigies at home, burning, just having friends over. It's like a New Year's sort of. In Iranian culture, we have something called Shab Yalda, which is it's the equinox. It's the longest night of the year, and families get together, you stay up super late, you have dinner late, it's just so it feels like that, and it's just warming my heart, and it just makes me gush.
I love it. And there's such a following of the webcam now too, and the gratitude circles that I do in Zoom, that group all met on Burn Night and had a feed of the burn going. I love that.
It is so good. That's actually one great example, with all the things that crusty old burners will complain about and say, oh, back in my day, there was no camera feed. But dude, that camera feed is amazing.
Yeah.
That's brought so much love and joy, and it's brought so many of us closer together, and that feeling that knowing that your people are out there around the world.
Totally. Because, isn't that every year when you're there, you're it is like this. Yeah. People are like this. And there are all sorts of reasons why you can't make it out. My friend Dimitri and his 5 kids, under young kids, he took a break this year after many, many years. But he could look at the webcam and get that reminder, right, this exists in the world. I'm a part of this. Yeah. This is, okay, the baseline is not where I thought it was. Yes.
Yeah. No, it makes me so happy. We're just going through rapid through. We're going to rapid through some topics. Okay. Center camp. How'd you feel about it?
I didn't spend as much time there as I would have liked. Uh-huh. I really loved some of the art and stuff in there. It was definitely worth spending time there.
It's definitely better than last year.
Absolutely.
I think they and removing Rod's Road may have contributed to that a little bit. I definitely found myself. I still didn't hang out in center camp the way I used to with coffee.
Yeah,
but
I agree. I also liked the road around center camp was filled with not just utilities like recycle camp. There was like Haca-Cola, you could go get a drink, and there was like a diner. Like, so the camps around center camp felt like places to hang out more than it used to be a place to get a pamphlet about recycling or I don't know. I mean, not that those camps are great too, but they don't have it felt utilitarian as opposed to fun, and I felt like it was a lot more fun. Also, they had these tables in center camp that were like laser cut with lights through them. Oh, I was like,
I didn't even see
this place it was yeah. There seemed to be it seemed to be compartmentalized into like the different stages or areas. That felt a little hard for me to sometimes know where I should be or should go. My annual pink ride that ended in a big spiraling hug in there was epic and incredible. How about you? What's your thoughts on it?
Like I said, I still didn't hang out there the way I did with coffee, because like, man, the coffee topic is the one thing I feel like a lot more people are unified about on social media than anything else. It's
That's
like
so funny.
The one thing that brings us together is like, like something about that coffee break really helped do a reset or anchor. Like, I just needed to go be alone for a minute, and like I wanted to go have a coffee shop experience. I could go do that in center camp, and I found myself hanging out there more as a result.
Yeah, and I think that while I appreciate the idea of more activities there, there is something about the coffee shop that you hang out at, and then people bring their own like face painting stuff, and they bring their own, and so it becomes a place that you go and you're not sure where you're going to go, but it's going to be relaxing. There's going to be people there. So I guess we're pro coffee.
Yeah, we're bring back the coffee. You were looking at your notes. There's something.
I've got just a few like specific pieces and things that I was a huge fan of.
Yeah, hit me.
I guess my favorite art piece was called Hearth. It was a heart inside a cage that you could climb up into.
Okay.
And it had this like. You climb in. First of all, I was proud of myself that I could get into it because like my years of being an agile climber are over, but I climbed up into this heart and it's got this cozy spots inside. I just thought it was really so beautiful. And then related to that, I was looking it up today to try to remember what the name was. It's by Mackenzie Gennon and the Green Bucket Lab. And while I was there, I remembered, they've got a donation link here. They still haven't met their goals. So I just want to remind everybody that if you've got pieces of art that you're just like, that was so awesome, those people are probably in debt right now. So go look them up and throw them a 20 and say thank you.
Yeah. Are any artists ever not in debt after Burning Man?
Someone else, I saw someone post go, do you think it's okay if a wealthy artist gets a grant? I say, yeah. We shouldn't. Well, okay, that's another topic.
No, that's an interesting topic.
Another,
that's something that comes up. I'm not feeling confident enough to like call out any of this art directly, but because I haven't done enough research in the background. But there was definitely some topic about like outsourced art.
Oh yeah.
Like, and if it's an outsourced piece, which is by the way, if you're an art student, you probably studied David Kuntz, and like. I was an art student. This was like half of our education. What is art? Who gets to call themselves artist? And so this was something that I definitely was starting to see happening this year. The conversation of like, how much of this do you get credit for as the artist if you just funded it and then somebody else built it?
I mean, that's related to another big like just trend.
And they got honorarium grants for it. Like that's the part that's like, what?
So here's this for me goes back to that same of like do less. Like there was a time I believed that when you walked around the Burn, you kept seeing these awesome projects made out of junk, and you go, I could do that. Yep. Oh, I could do that. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'm an artist. Maybe I could do that. And now, God bless, I love this amazing art. I still want people to make it, but I'm
not complaining.
It is a different. I look at these pieces of art and I do not have the feeling I could do that. I'm going to a incredible showing of art, and so the idea of outsourcing or of creating things that you can't create, bringing art that you yourself can't make, it's touchy for me.
Yeah. I would like to add, though, I would like to encourage folks, you can always bring it and set it up at your camp. Like if you want to make that kind of art, like you want to strap. Let me tell you, the story, like I'm so happy that you have some art pieces that you printed out, because like I did not do that research for this episode.
Arash is going to know the names and I'm going to feel embarrassed.
No, not at all. That's why I have guests. I make you do the work. I can tell you the story that I have shared the most about probably my favorite experience on Playa, even though, I mean, of course, like we're going to talk about the spectacular art pieces. But like, I think the thing that I keep sharing was when I stumbled upon the zombie advice booth.
Ooh.
It's, the listeners who are familiar, of course, with the bad advice booth. But this one was just a couple of zombies. And they're sitting there. And whatever you ask, they just respond with...
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, that is I think... I love hearing that. Because
you can do that.
Because... that is something that when I think about old school Burning Man, I feel like there was more high idea, individual, improv-y type wackiness. Yeah, people would come up to you and do something, and so because we have this huge art that we are going to check out, it's a little bit different vibe than we're all entertaining each other.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there's still lots of that happening. I know that when I gift, I like to do it as like a performance, but I feel like I experience less of that, like individuals or a couple people doing some wacky thing.
That's an excellent observation. I want to say what you're describing, like that kind of feeling, is less likely to happen out in like open playa, where like a lot of like the honor area pieces are, like in the center. I think I find that I had experiences like that in deep playa, and then I had experiences like that inside the city, but not so much in the center gallery of Burning Man, if you will. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like just as you're describing that, I just remembered at one point I was riding my bike and in a back dark street, like I don't know, somewhere near K, I think, and there's a large line of folks all wearing referee outfits. And they were just like blocking the way. So I'm just like trying to go around them. I'm like, you guys are in the way. And then they all just attacked me with just like whistles, like soccer whistles. Awesome. And they're throwing red cards at me. And it was just like this whole thing. It just went on and on. And I'm like just getting out of there. And it was hilarious.
I love that. I mean, I love the big art. I think the big art is what creates the container that inspires the wackiness, but it's the wackiness that really makes me, like, it frees me. That constriction in me, that seeing people being crazy and wacky is what makes my thing open up and go, I can be weirder.
The art in kind of like the center gallery area of Burning Man, I feel like it's gotten to that. It's become so impressive that it almost seems like people feel like they can't get wacky around them because you got to be respectful of this amazing art.
Well, and there's people waiting in line to get their picture taken.
I was going to say, was the Heart of the City piece? It was
the like little structures that made up the heart. That was beautiful.
That one was spectacular. I wish, if I'd done my research, I could tell you.
There's another thing I wanted to mention, which is Henry Chang's art car, Alethea. I don't know if you saw that. It was 45 feet tall. It was like this huge metal turrety thing on top of it, 60 feet long, 42 feet wide. It was. I almost couldn't believe I was seeing it. It's like it would have been massive as a sculpture, and it was a mutant vehicle.
Wow. It's possible that I saw it and I couldn't tell it was a mutant vehicle.
It was like he is an artist that consistently does these metal cars that are next level, like quality stuff. And he's also someone who participates in online conversations, and I think really holds a beautiful line of integrity of keeping the community focused on what's important. And so I just want to shout out continually bringing big art and making the community better.
I love that. Is Peter based in Vegas or New York?
Henry Chang?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes.
I don't know.
I feel like I heard he was in Vegas. Well, I'm moving to Vegas.
I think it's Vegas. I think so. I think you're right.
Fun fact. I'm moving to Vegas next month. So that might be on my track. Let's see if I make that interview happen. Go ahead. Go.
The other ones on my list that just are just the go-tos. I thought the man base was gorgeous.
Yes.
The art underneath it was incredible. I loved the man, and as always, but even more so, the temple was incredible.
The temple was spectacular,
and it had went up with their lighting was so. It was. I mean, I don't know how it just continually is incredible, but it is incredible.
Yeah. No, I kept asking myself if I'm particularly biased because I'd done the interview with Caro before this one for the temple lead artist, and I just kept taking it in, and I was like hanging. I think I hung out there longer than I ever have at a temple, like just sitting there and meditating and journaling and. No, it really was truly.
The two places I went most this burn was Pink Heart and the temple.
Wow.
I kept going back because it was just like, it's. I mean, the temple has just with outside of this year, just the fact that we have this place that we have kind of designated as a safe space to grieve. That most people do not have in their lives. You know, a church doesn't feel that way. A funeral doesn't feel that way to me. Yeah. You know, and so to have that space, I actually had an experience this year at the temple where this last year I've kind of gotten a little bit overwhelmed at times with just the environment and humanity, and I sometimes like feeling like, are we a parasite? Are humans a problem? And as I walked through the temple and I was looking at all these collages of people's lives and seeing these human beings at their high moments, on a mountaintop with their child, like celebrating. And I was like, oh, wow. Like human creativity and love is the most beautiful blossom on this planet. The Gaia's most beautiful thing is human potential and creativity and love. We are also a parasite. So we are both. But seeing the temple just was like, oh, I can see it. We are not what's wrong. We're also what's right. And I mean, I think Burning Man overall as a city is what it reminds us that. Like we have the potential to not be drones, to not be destroying everything, but we also have the potential to express from that that open pipeline that I've been talking about. When we let that out, whether it's love and creativity, when we let that out, we are what's right on this planet.
There was an awesome new person I met this year, and he described it perfectly. He's like, because I've always talked about how it's the top of Maslow's pyramid. Like we are incredibly privileged to be there. We have this level. And by the way, interesting note, this year was a year that I felt a little bit shaken in my foundation, and I became aware of it because I was out there. Because it is normally, I feel so safe and I feel so supported, and I feel like my foundation's in a good place, the base of the pyramid. And then when I was out there, I realized, oh, my base is a little bit shaken. It's become unsturdy, and I could sense it. And I could sense it when I was out there. I was more insecure. I was a little more afraid. But then this friend described it, as I was sharing this whole story with him, he was like, yeah, this is peak human experience.
Yeah.
Going to experiencing Burning Man this is kind of a small transition I'm making too. It's a bit of if I'm not pronouncing this right, a liminal space. Yeah, liminal space where it is outside of reality. It really is.
Yeah.
Like, the rest of reality is the default world, and then we get in there. And there's this topic, there is part of this conversation about how much and this is something that I'm going to get into in a future episode. I do want to actually do an episode specifically where we get deep into the topic of like, what is our responsibility as burners in this environment? Because in the default world, there is quite a bit of fuckery going on. And there is arguably, is it possible that it's the most fucked up time? Probably. I mean, there's a strong argument can be made that that's not correct, but there's a lot of shit happening in the world that I'm not going to open up the Pandora's box on this episode since we've got about 15 minutes left. But I am planning to do a future episode about, I do want to really get into this topic. What is our responsibility as burners what is our responsibility in the default world if we are watching injustice happening in the world? What is our place bringing that into the liminal space, into this meta reality that is Black Rock City? Because it is different. We talked about how, like, I'm Fine, for example, is like this amazing structure, right? But it was very much anchored into the default world. Yeah. And I think it's an interesting topic because I think the reason it was successful was because it was an art piece that used the default world as like its paintbrush without it needing to be only connected to the default world. Like you could see it there. It's like a movie. Like you can watch a movie. It's got a beginning, middle, and end. But if the movie can't be enjoyed without having watched the entire rest of the cinematic universe, arguably, is that a good film? It's not self-contained.
Interesting. Well, and it's also like it wasn't anti anything.
Right.
It was like I heard about a lot of controversy at the
Yes.
temple where
Yes.
people were having different flags and taking them down and putting them up, and that is either we're anchoring this liminal space to some fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
And that gets really, you're right, that's deserving of another episode. But I do want to just touch a little bit to the responsibility thing, because that is really a huge part of my life is focused in this idea that the chance of experiencing Black Rock City, the chance of witnessing human potential at its peak, having the luxury of total freedom and expression is so finite and tiny and incredible that if we go back to the default world and wait for the next year, I think that is so irresponsible. I think it is so unfair. It's so not honoring the gift that you've been given. So I don't, that doesn't mean that you have to go march every day being an activist. It means you have to, though, be a little bit more courageous in bucking the status quo.
Right.
Whether that is your ideas or the way you look or whatever it is, it's like you are being steered into a certain way of acting and being and doing. That's what cultures do. Black Rock City doesn't have that, and we see what happens. Incredible things happen. So I think we have a responsibility to be a little bit more radically self-expressed, to find ways to, what are our gifts? How can we give them? How can we find the cracks in the world that our gifts can do? If we are not being inspired to do that by Black Rock City, we are missing the point.
Yeah, I think the conversation, always comes up, right? Where people are like, how do we make the rest of the world, just like this? And I think the whole point is that it can't.
Right.
We go to Burning Man because it is a week-long psychedelic where we experience this it's this meta reality, it's this liminal, it's this outside. It is purposely outside of default world, so that we have this intense experience, and then we come back and we meet somewhere in the middle of that gap. And if we can bring back half of that into the default world, if we could bring back a quarter of it, a tenth of it into the default world, we've already made the default world a better place. But I think that space needs to be protected.
Yeah. I mean, people always say, like, oh, why can't the default world be like Burning Man? I'm like, well, it can't. Yeah. But you can be the same person that you are at Burning Man. Mm-hmm. You can still act the same way. You can still, you're not going to have the same cheerleaders. You're not going to have the same community of people that says, we love you no matter what. Yeah. But you can have the courage to do it, and you will inspire people. That's back to our beginning. There are people out there that are trying to find their bubbles. There are people out there that know that the groove that they are been forced into is not who they are. And when they see someone who is radically self-expressing and doing so joyfully and showing, role modeling what they have learned at Black Rock City, it it inspires people. And so I think you're right. We can't. The world will never be Black Rock City, but there's a potential for millions of burners to be turned on by your action in the default world.
No, I think it arguably isn't supposed to be. It's like in Christianity, for example, the idea is like you're never going to be Christ, but you try to be Christ-like.
Wait, hey. I'm just kidding. I am known as Pink Jesus.
Well done. Short-circuited you for a second. I'm like, oh shit, where's John about to go with this? All right. Well played, sir. Tell me about one more piece.
Hey,
what do you think about e-bikes?
Oh my god! As a man in his 50s, I am a huge fan of my e-bike.
Yeah.
You know, I have two e-bikes that are permanently covered in pink fur year round that I use in the default world. I understand the frustrations with speeding, and I think that we should, as a community, we should enforce speeding more because I agree that is problematic. As someone who would never go look at big art without my e-bike, I really love it.
I would generally agree with that. My friend Bones had actually said like the reason he loves his e-bike is that it brings him closer to Burning Man. He can connect with it deeper. I have heard multiple people, and I don't know if this is at all true, I'm just sharing this, opine that the reason the roads were so fucked up was because of the e-bikes.
Interesting.
I can tell you that by the end of the week, I missed a lot of people that I really wanted to see. I didn't see a bunch of things that I really wanted to experience because my ass had taken such a punishment from those fucking roads.
Oh, from the roads.
Yeah.
From the roads. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an important clarification.
Interesting.
I was so. I love how point blank you're looking at me like, tell me about the punishment your ass took. But yeah, no, I just, it was from the roads. Like I was in so much pain by the end of the week. Even with my e-bike, like the e-bike that I borrowed, I couldn't get from where I was trying to go because I was just in so, like everything hurt.
I mean, my experience of Burning Man as I age is absolutely affected by my ability to deal with discomfort and body pain and things like that. So, I don't know if it affects the roads though. That's an interesting idea. I mean, it'd be interesting to talk to somebody who is a road dust specialist. If there is such a thing.
Do we have anybody out there?
I bet if we ask on Facebook, we'll get 1,000 people who say they know exactly the reason.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
That's not why. It's exactly why.
Let's not do that.
Oh, Facebook.
Okay, I have two more pieces I want to mention. One, there was this unicorn slide that was super gorgeous. I don't know who made it, but it was really beautiful that I loved. It was this combination of whimsical and fine art beautiful, which I guess the banana was also in that realm of like just so crazy absurd, the monstrous banana that was out there. And then there was this right near the Burners Out Borders, there was a massive hanging skull with metal and stained glass, and it was like really like dark and scary, but the craftsmanship in it was so beautiful. I loved the like scariness and the beauty. It was like a cathedral of danger or something. It was called the Peso Neto.
Nice.
Beautiful. I
love that. I love that we're interjecting with art pieces, by the way, that you have, thank God, researched. Thank Pink Jesus. I was going to say on the lower attendance topic.
Oh,
that was a big one, right?
Yeah.
First of all, I fucking loved exactly the number that was
yes.
there. Yes, it was excellent. The main thing I noticed was that the only difference really I felt was that getting through Esplanade did not feel like just a massive, insane clusterfuck.
Good point. Yeah.
It was great. I was like, oh, wow, I don't hate being on Esplanade. For the rest of it, it's not like there was less Burning Man.
Right. I did not experience any. I mean, I don't know if it was just when I left or when I got there. Felt like entry and exit were easier.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like there were. If you wanted to be packed with people, there were plenty of places that were packed with people. Like, did you go to the Rufus Friday night
I saw
thing?
The video. I watched it afterwards.
I went to just check it out because I'd heard what Rufus Del Sol is playing Sunset at Robot Heart
it was the New Mayan Warrior, which, by the way, fucking amazing.
No, what was interesting was I thought it was going to be Deep Playa. It was close in. It was close to the city, and it's the most people I've ever seen at a not burn night. You know, it was a spectacle. Yeah. It was not my thing, but it was interesting to see.
Yeah, I watched it afterwards.
The movie was better.
Yeah. So by the way, side note, New Mayan Warrior, fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous. Also, Feng Long, the Chinese art car, the Chinese themed art car with the dragons on it.
Oh,
that
yeah.
thing is just gorgeous. Absolutely amazing. The part of the note that I had for the lower attendance, this kind of like circles back to a little bit of the topic that we were hitting on earlier in this conversation. I think it's not just about Burning Man. There's more competition, and it's not just the regionals. There's more transformational festivals. People in general, I think, have more outlets to have transformational experiences. It used to be that if you weren't going to Burning Man, the likelihood of finding it somewhere was very low.
Good point.
These days, however, there is events happening, there's smaller gatherings happening, there's festivals happening, and I think that's a contributing factor as to why people are like, well, I don't have to go out there and deal with the drudgery of going out into the desert and this and that. I can go to this thing in Costa Rica. I can go to this thing in blah, blah, and it's got the parts that I'm reaching for.
Well, and, if you were on the fence or you had it on your bucket list for years and then you heard about the super hot year you saw reports last year about the mud. And I don't think it's the mud that scared people. I think it's the not getting back to work.
Yeah.
And I think that
the mud couldn't have scared people because unless you've experienced it, you don't know what that mud is like. So.
But I mean, the news reports last year were insane about how negative and how people were eating them, cannibalism and stuff like that. But
they tried so hard to Fire Festival that.
It totally. But if you've got something on your bucket list, going to have an adventure for a week is one thing. Going to have an adventure that you may not be able to leave from, that I think cuts it out of a lot of people's lists of something they can do. I mean,
it's a great ending. Yeah, that's true. If I can't leave the adventure, that terrifies me.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, many people said it was best ever.
It was. That was, I would say that was my favorite burn that I've ever had.
I mean, it's one of those things. It's hard to explain to people that haven't been. Like, oh, I don't like dust, and it was like, well, you don't understand. It's when you're pushed outside of what you're expecting. It's when you are pushed into a place that you've never been before. That's where the awesome things happen. And I think that the mud does that. The Burning Man is so good at that, which is why it's like it's not a vacation. Right. It's as always. I cried this year because it's not. It's in those places of, oh shit, that you stretch and realize that you're bigger than you thought you were, and you're a better person afterwards.
Absolutely. Listen, we're gonna have to wrap this up because I know you have to be somewhere.
That's true.
Yeah. Also, it's been an hour and a half. There's definitely a couple of topics that we could not get into, and I like to share with our listeners. There's no topic that I'm afraid of touching on. There's no topic that we're going to avoid. I do believe it's important for that topic to have enough space to breathe and be honored properly. So there's definitely some stuff that we want to get into about what's happening with our community and culture, with the org, with the default world, all the stuff that we don't have the time to get into on today's.
Can I make a plug?
Please.
I do a live broadcast every morning, a Love Ambassador meetup on YouTube at Hug Nation YouTube, and it is an invitation to come share gratitude, to inspire one another, to really it is inspired by what we're talking about of like, hey, we are aware of who we can be in the world, so let's pump each other up. Let's focus on the gratitude. Let's be radically self-expressed. Let's share the stories of how great it is to be aware of being who we are in the world. We're burners, but that vibe in the world. And so every morning at 9 a.m., we kind of gather and spend between 10 and 30 minutes just kind of sharing where we're at. And I welcome you to join me.
Yeah, please. That's great. I'm going to, I guess, do the outro thing. This was lovely.
It was.
Thank you. I'm so happy we made this work.
You.
I love you.
Yeah.
This was really like, oh God, it's been such a fuckery of a week. Like the fact that we were able to pull this off was I was like, no, we need to just do this. By the way, one of the reasons I was able to pull this off was that with you, we were already in this groove. So I didn't have to prepare as much. Like if I'm going to sit down to like interview Henry Chang, like that's going to be like a couple of weeks of prep and I'm going to organize notes. But today I was just like, nope, I'm just going to sit and hang out with my buddy and we're going to talk about Burning Man.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. And certainly not the last that we're going to talk about 2024. There's going to be future episodes. But yeah, I'm going to do the outro thing here. Let me just do the outro script. Is there anything else I need to say? No, that's it. That's our episode. Thank you. I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for Pink Heart, even though you weren't there this year.
Oh, and thank you all those in Pink Heart for rocking the ripples.
If you liked this episode, text it to 3 of your friends. That's what I'm asking. Like, don't have to make a big deal about it. You can just open up your phone and text it to your friend and go, hey, check out this episode of Burner Podcast where these guys talked about Burning Man sort of for an hour and a half.
It was life-changing.
Yeah, it really was. You can, you don't even have to sell it. you can just say, check it out. And thank you, my dear listeners. We love you very much and we appreciate all of you around the world for engaging in this. And I know I'm speaking for John when I say like it's what keeps our hearts pumping. It's what gets us waking up in the morning. And truly, it's just magical feelings, sparkly feelings in our bellies from knowing that you guys are all out there. You people are out there listening and keeping our culture moving forward. And it is because of you that I can tell you, no matter what experience I'm having in the default world, I never feel alone. Because I know that I have this big, giant, massive, messy family all over the world. And truly, did you want to say something on that topic?
I just want to echo that you're not alone.
No,
it's so easy to feel that way after the burn when you feel the presence of Burner so strong. But we are everywhere, and even the people that don't know it yet, you are not alone.
We are everywhere,
and it's so much easier when we know that.
Yeah. Leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you are listening on, iTunes, whatever the fuck. All of this leads the links for all the things, all of the stuff on this podcast. They're all over at burnerpodcast.com. Burner Podcast is produced by a revolving team of editorial staff based in various cities. This particular episode, I guess it was just us. We just scheduled it and we showed up.
Did I get producer credit?
Yeah. There you go.
Sweet.
Yeah. Contributing producer, Halcyon. Our official Black Rock City correspondent, I'm going to say. The Burner Podcast theme music, America's Horse with No Name Remix, is produced by Joe Man. He is in Austin, Texas. Our executive producer is Patrick Dillon Riley. Until next time, love, light, and all that other crap. See you back in the dust.
I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
burnerpodcast.com.